many cars have you ever owned?
5 maybe.
I've done about 30. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show Ben all the cars that I've ever owned from passing my test since I was 17 right through to now.
Since you were 17? Were cars invented then?
They were actually,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
These cars I've owned older than you. Okay?
Brilliant.
So I'm going to show you the car. These are not the exact cars, obviously, because this is like Google pictures and stuff, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I was surprised when I actually looked and I thought, yes, these cars are actually available to Google and you can actually find the exact same car.
What, like trim, colour, everything?
Colour, like the first one I'm going to show you, they did it in 2 headlights. One was round, one was square, and obviously loads of different things. So
Right.
the first one is a Mark II Escort. Now, when I say these years and reg plates, they might not necessarily be exact. They might be a year out. This is how I remember it. Right. This is the first car.
Oh, mate. In that colour? Stop it.
In that colour, so it was beige.
I mean, of all the colours to nick from Volvo, it ain't that one, is it?
No. So the RS2000 version of this was good. I think they did a 1.1, 1.3, 1.6, and then they did the 2.1 RS2000 version.
Yeah.
Obviously I was 17, so I had to get something that was cheap to insure. Now, thinking back, I had to go for the 1.3 litre Popular Plus. It was £650.
That was a lot of money back then, I'm guessing. What were you getting paid, like a tenner a week or something?
I was on a YTS, which was £29.50 a week. After I'd paid my rent to my mum and dad and stuff, I had about a fiver left for fuel. So I remember picking it up, and the old woman that I bought it off, she had a pillow cushion on the driver's seat because the seat had sagged that much because it was like an old car. So as iconic car as it is now, this old woman was driving it, so they just didn't know back then. But it was the one with the round headlights, so basically that one is the one that I had. I did a few things to it as well. We sprayed it red.
Red?
Red, yeah.
So were you quite bold back then? Because now you're just like a
at the time,
Jane now, I'm a white car guy.
At the time, red was like quite an in colour.
Really?
I also put a Weber carburettor on it and a K&N filter.
K&N were going back then
K&N,
as well.
yeah.
Nice.
So it ran 70 horsepower on a Krypton tune. And do you know what? At the time, it felt all right.
Right.
I mean, I used to drift that car and everything, seriously. 1.3 litre, 70 horsepower, used to drift, so there's nothing to say you can't drift a low-powered car. After that, I went to a W-Reg Ford Cortina. It was brown. So, that was the exact car. Is it a Mark IV?
It's a wonder how you're a Ford fanboy having owned a beige and brown. So your first car was beige, your second car was brown.
Yeah.
So what colour can I get that was shit in the first one?
These are 1970s, early 1980s cars. Brown was in, beige was in, you know what I mean? So, I paid £300 for this car. The problem is it had 4-ball tyres. There's a little bit of history with that car. I'm not going to go into it because I drove it illegally.
Oh, okay.
Let's move on. So, next car, like I say, it's not getting any better, is it?
No.
I can't believe this. I never actually thought this when you kept saying about brown cars. But the next one was...
It's not brown again, surely. A brown Vauxhall Astra.
A brown Vauxhall Astra. Don't remember the trim level on it, but it was a 1.2.
Right.
So, ridiculously underpowered. It wasn't the most powerful of cars, but bought it from a dealer, and it was the first car that I actually bought, because the first two I got, one I got just out of the Auto Trader, the second one I just bought off my mate. This one I actually bought from a dealer in Warrington. I remember going, and the guy and I paid £800 for it.
Right.
When I was 16, I got knocked off my motorbike, and I got compensation for it. So
Did you bang your head?
I did bang my head, yeah. And I got some compensation, so I just got the money 3 years later when I was 19.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, I'll spend £800 of my 7,000. I think I had 5,000 in the end because I owed some of it out. I bought it, and this is Vauxhall, right?
Yeah.
The CV joint had gone straight away, literally a few miles in it.
Yeah.
The warranty didn't cover it because it was wear and tear. So straight away I was like, I've been had off here, you know, and then it ended up crashing into the back of someone else. So it just...
Probably improved the look of it. So this is where we get some decent stuff now.
A 1984 Ford Escort, but it was an RS 1600.
Ooh.
Injection. This is the exact, it was a graphite grey, that was the exact car.
You got sunroofs as well?
They had everything on that car.
Wow.
I paid $27.50 for the car. The driver's door, the hinges, it rotten down the hinges. Like there was rot, so you had to lift the door to close it a little bit. Typical Ford craftsmanship from the 1980s. So yeah, that was the only car, the RS 1600. And this was in Eccles. So back then, back in 1991, I think this was, someone broke into my Escort outside, just off Liverpool Road, with a scaffolding bar, broke the steering ignition and tried to steal the car, but must have been scared away by someone.
Right.
Anyway, the car was still there, scaff bar was in the thing, so I found it. And then I had to drive the car around then with a screwdriver because I didn't have enough money to get it fixed, you know.
So you look like you'd nicked your own car.
I looked like I nicked my own car, yeah. So the door, the barrel had been done, everything. Basically, I couldn't lock the car and anyone could steal it. I ended up moving house to another flat a few months later, and I parked it at the back of this flat on the grass, off-road. It was like really out of the way. The battery was flat, the car was a non-runner, and it come the next day and it was like gone. Someone must have just towed it away. And then that's not the end of the story. 2 years later, the engine turns up. Police knock on the door and say, do you own this car? I used to, it got stolen. He said, well, we found your engine.
No way.
So I got the engine back and I just put it in the loot, if anyone remembers what the loot is.
I remember the loot.
I got £70 for the engine.
So from your £2,750, you got 70 quid back.
I got 70 quid back. Basically, after the RS 1600, I got an E-Reg van, Escort van, white one.
She's a stunner.
1,300 for the van, and I think it cost me 500 quid to fix it. But there was no comeback from the auction, not like now. If you bought a car or a van from the auction, you've got like a period of time.
Oh, have you?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You can go back and say this is
you're taking
not
the
as
piss.
described,
This is
knackered.
Unless they say it's
Sold
got
as seen or
problems.
whatever.
Then we're back to some decent cars again now. Have a guess how much I paid for that car. I'm going back to when did they have that? 1993 or something around that time.
£2,000.
£650.
Joking.
But the problem I had with it is the revs used to like that.
Oh, so idled.
Yeah,
rough.
really high. 2.8 litre injection, so decent engine, running like 150 horsepower.
So you were flying round at this point.
Oh, flying.
These police chases were like 10 a penny. You were just no one could keep
No
up
one
with
was
it.
keeping up with me. And you know what I loved about that car? Roundabouts. It just used to go sideways. Literally, just tickle the throttle and it was sideways.
Out of what, 5 or 6 so far, that's the one that you actually have fond memories of.
Yeah, I didn't lose anything, didn't make anything on it. It was fine. Financially, it was fine. But up to now, the car that I liked the most was the RS 1600i.
Right.
And this one now, so it was a 1984 Ford Escort Estate in good old white. It got me to work and back. And you know what? It did the job. It was 300 quid. I think I sold it for 200. I had to literally twist someone's arm to take it off me. Take it off my hands.
No, the dead fashionable lead. It'll be a future classic.
It's just like a yo-yo of cars, this.
Up and
the
down.
next car, you won't believe what's coming next.
Right.
B-Reg, Ford Escort, RS Turbo. And mine was a B-Reg. Most of these were C-Regs. The reason I was able to pay this amount of money for this car is I did this job and I was self-employed. So at the end of the year, I got a tax rebate and I got about £2,000 back, which was...
You got money off the tax man?
I got money off the tax man because I was paying, my boss was paying my tax as I went.
Yeah. And
then we got a tax rebate. So I got at least £2,000 back because I went to Blackpool and bought this car for £2,000.
Now, let me stop you there, because I'm expecting this story to go right downhill. As soon as you start something off saying I bought a car from Blackpool, it can't end well.
No, it did have a little bit of rot on it.
Being by the sea.
Being by the sea, yeah. Now, this is the first turbo car that I'd ever owned.
Right. So this was super duper rapid.
This was modified as well.
Right.
It was a modified RS Turbo. So it's probably running just short of 200 horsepower, maybe between 150 and 180, something like that.
Right.
But because the weight to power ratio was so good, it was just an amazing car. And there's no bad story with this because...
Really?
Yeah.
So it stayed in one piece?
It stayed in one piece, it was fine,
wasn't
took it to
cut
work.
short.
I had a few problems with it, electrical faults, which is just typical Ford.
Yeah.
Because one of these components in the engine that controlled the ignition got hot, it just wouldn't start again. You had to leave it for like half an hour to cool down. And it's just one of the things I remember about the car.
Personality.
Personality.
I'll
Ford.
start when I want to start. You lead me to it.
Yeah. So I sold that. I think I sold it for about £1,500.
Right.
Now the next car that I bought it was an actual Ford Escort again.
Oh really?
I've had so many Escorts, I can't even tell you, but I think it was an 86 in, have a guess of the colour.
Brown.
Not far off, burgundy.
Oh mate, see, I always got confused as a kid because these were still on the road when I was a kid, right? And I always got confused in the very early days of that and the Orion because they were very similar looking, weren't they? Obviously, the connoisseurs and the Ford fanboys would be like, no, no, no. The Orion is slightly bigger and longer and whatever.
Yeah, I paid £600 for that.
That's like a geography teacher's car.
The next one is probably it's the most shocking car I've ever bought. My dad was selling this car for £1,750. It was a Citroen ZX, and that was the colour and everything. And I remember buying it and thinking, do you know what? It was a really good, it was dead smooth, everything like that. But I remember having it for one day and the exhaust fell off it. So I'm ringing my dad, the exhaust just fell off, and he was like, oh.
That's your problem.
That's
now.
your problem. And there was no warranty, even off my old man. So the next one, the only downside to this is the colour.
It's like a running theme, that.
It is. Subaru Impreza.
That was after the ZX?
That was after the ZX. Basically.
In that colour?
In that colour, yeah.
Green. It's like British racing green, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what were these? About 220 brake, these?
I think there was a 220 standard, 2 litre boxer engine, 4-pot. But when I got it, I modified it, obviously chip, induction, everything like that. 280 it was running.
Flying
was
machine.
flying. It was flying 4-wheel drive as well. I don't think I'd ever owned a 4-wheel drive car up until that point.
Right.
It was a bit of an eye-opener because I'm used to rear-wheel drive and front-wheel drive with all the Escorts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that car. I keep forgetting about the price. £8,000 that car cost.
Nice.
I think it was 6,900 I sold it for.
Right. So what you did was you bought the car, you modified it, ruined it, then sold it.
And then sold it.
Fair play.
This is the next car. Is the first brand new car I'd ever bought.
Right.
ST170.
Yeah, they were. See, I love the multi-spoke wheels on them. I think they look mint. Yeah, they were nice cars. These.
It was. Mine had the full body kit, so it had the front skirt, everything, the rear spoiler.
Yeah.
It looked really, really good. You've got to go back. This was my first brand new car.
Yeah.
I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be paying 16 grand ever for a car. So paid 16 grand for it and took it away, and I was buzzing. The only problem was with the car is I'd come out of a 280 horsepower Subaru and I went into a 170 PS car. Supposedly they weren't running that. The car felt 130 horsepower.
Really?
Felt slower than the RS Turbo. It was just, but it was a brand new car and I enjoyed it for the 6 months that I had it.
6 months?
I had that car for 6 months. There's a reason why this car went so quick.
Right.
It was slow, but this car had just come out and I could buy it, so I did. Mark 1, Focus RS.
What a good looking car that is.
That, I can't tell you the difference between anything else on the road at the time and that car. I remember picking it up and driving it and I thought, wow, this car is amazing. The feel, the drive, the power. It was only 215 PS. People say, oh, the Mark II Focus RS is the better car. But I actually thought, at the time, that car, I loved that car. I had it for 18 months.
Oh, you did like that car then?
I did like that car,
Yeah.
and the one reason I sold it, I couldn't afford the payment on it.
Right.
So the business that I had was struggling, and I couldn't make the 500, and I missed one payment. I not missed it, so it was on my credit report, but I had to make the payment or get rid of the car, and I couldn't get the payment from anywhere. So I went into Ford, and the guy in Ford just said, do you want to sell the car? And I was like, well, not really, but then I started thinking. And then when he said, I'll give you 16 grand for it,
Right.
it was 18 months old.
Here's the key. So you lost 4 grand.
I lost 4 grand,
18
months. You'll be amazed at this next spell of cars and what actually happened with them. I used to go to computer auctions, and some of the computer auctions used to overlap with car auctions and stuff, and cars were for sale. So you end up going to the Jap auctions at Liverpool.
Right.
So I bought a few cars from there, and the first one was an Evo 4 in white.
Nice.
And I bought that car for 4,000 and something. SVA'd it at the time, that was the testing. The only thing I didn't like about it, wow, the ride was so harsh.
Right.
It was like it had no suspension. So the car stood me at about 7 grand. I sold it for about 8,000 something. So I ended up making decent money on that car.
So then you thought, oh, I can do this.
I can do it. So I went back to the auction and the money's.
Imagine you like this.
I was there.
With your cigar.
So this car was before Fast and Furious and everything like that. The Mark IV Supra, it was a 3 litre NA auto. Oh, it was a bag of shit. Seriously. I didn't even like the look of it. And I still don't really like the look of it. And people are like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you. And my eyes know what I'm talking about. Look at that car. At the time, it was actually all right at the time. I remember them being imported. I remember a guy, when I was roofing, a guy had one.
Right.
So he was on his roof and I was like, oh, that's super that. They've just started coming into the country. Well out of my price bracket at the time. And I think that's why I bought it. just because it reminded me of when I did that job, and I was like, I'll buy that. Anyway, I sold it for $42.50 and I made about £400 or £500 on it. I did nothing to that car.
Right.
I bought it, I drove it for a bit, did the school run. My daughter was in the primary school down there. I took her, I remember taking her in the car in the morning, and I just used it. I just used it for the school run. I didn't really use it for anything else.
Was she like this in the back of the car, like, oh my God?
No, she was buzzing.
Because all the mates had known it was a non-turbo auto, like that.
Oh yeah, everyone knew.
He's bought a Jag Supra.
So, off the back of my success selling 2 Jap cars,
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going big now. I'm going big.
Ah, I remember this one as well.
So, at the same time as selling these cars, I was doing really well in the business, the other business, like the computer components, and I thought, right, I'm going to spend some of this money, I'm going to buy an American truck. It was a 2003 Dodge Ram.
Yeah.
So I bought this car off eBay, booked my flights to Texas, where the car was. I think it was about £400 for this flight, and I thought I'm just going to fly out, pick it up, drive it home basically. Yeah, drive it to the, I was just going to drive it to the port in Virginia, which is absolutely miles, but back then I just didn't care. I was just about to get picked up on the morning to go to Manchester Airport, and the guy emailed me from America saying, I don't want to sell the car anymore. I was like, oh my God. Like, so cancelled the flight, got my tax back, lost the money on the flight. So I was well pissed off at this point. So I thought, right, I'm gonna buy something. So I got in touch with this dealer in Texas. They had one, $9,000, and I bought the car blind from this dealer. There was no video calls then or anything. There was no video walk around. I trusted the dealer, which is bad because he used to be a car salesman. So they arranged the shipping to Liverpool port with VAT and everything, all the import duty, shipping, £13,500. So I got this car booked. The equivalent car was going for about 16 plus VAT. I thought, yeah, I'll make some money off this. And I got offered 16 grand for it as soon as I landed.
Took that, didn't you?
No, I kept the truck because I liked the truck. And I drove it around for 6 months, so I broke even on the truck.
But so from what it owed you when you originally, all right, so you had 6 months enjoyment out of.
I got 13.5 grand for the truck. So after that, I just sold the property. So I had all this money, I had the truck money and some money off the property. And I thought, right, I'm gonna set my proper business up. I got a unit and did my business properly. So I just got a cheap car just to get around. And I bought another Escort.
Knew it.
52 Focus Estate diesel.
Estate?
Yeah.
Diesel?
Diesel. And it used to smoke its knackers off when you used to put your foot down. Turbo used to kick in. But I tell you what, it was super reliable.
My mum and dad had loads of Peugeot diesels and they were bulletproof.
It just did the job. And do you know what? I had that car for probably 18 months, paid $2,800 with all the auction bits and bobs, and I sold it for 2,200, something like that.
Really?
Yeah. So I lost like £600 on the car in ages.
Not bad.
Next one after that, I got 2007 brand new Cupra in white. I think it's £20,000 for the car, and just did HP for like whatever it was. I was happy with that car until the Focus RS Mark II come out. I put an order down for this ages before it come, because even back then, I think it was a year wait. It was 28,000, but it had everything on it. Lux Pack 1, Lux Pack 2. So sat nav, the shell seats, it had everything in white. Come into the showroom and they were like, right, we've got this car for you, because I originally ordered a green one. It was the press car basically, in green. Anyway, I seen it in white and I thought, do you know what? I actually prefer the white. So I took the white one and I had nothing but trouble with it.
So I've heard the stories on this car.
The seat wore out on the bolster within like 2,000 miles. The steel bar was coming through the Recaro seat. You could feel it really bad. I took the car away from the showroom and the turbo hose wasn't even connected to the car. There was no boost. And he said, right, okay, sorry about that, we've put it on. 2-3 days later, floored it in third gear, bang, turbo hose. Took it back in and I said, we'll put a bigger Jubilee clip on it.
That's what they said?
Yeah. I had quite a few problems, and one of the other ones, the floating calipers used to make a really bad bang in reverse, and it was like supposedly normal. Yeah, electrical faults. You wind the window down a little bit and it was literally like the window was going to fall out, and in the end I just took it back and I said, you're going to have to take it back off.
So arguably the best looking Focus RS
Yeah.
Probably the one that you were looking forward to the most was the biggest disappointment.
I loved the car. It's a shame it had so many problems.
I'm surprised that you never ended up like throwing yourself off a bridge or anything with the cars that you went from to.
It's not been like that, has
No.
it? It's literally up there, down there, up there, down there. And then got some more money together, business picked up, as it always, it's up and down business. My wife wanted a VXR, so it's sort of like our car, we used it together. So Corsa VXR, black, 2007, had a couple of issues with it. Paid 7,200 private for it, had that for maybe 6 months, and then traded that in for. Business started to go really well. Then I could afford.
Was this your first GTR?
No, but it's not far off. It was an E92 M3, 2007, Moonstone Blue, I think the colour was. It's a bluey silver.
Definitely silver.
It's bluey silver. What was that bluey silver in the E92 M3?
Not that silver, it'll be a different colour to that, because that's just silver.
But I did want a white one. I did actually want a white
There's your
E92
shock.
M3,
Yeah.
but they were so expensive.
The white ones were?
Oh, they were like 4 or 5 grand more.
White did go through a stage of everyone had a white car, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, I got this car from a dealer, so we traded the Corsa in.
Right.
Can't remember, I think we got about 6 grand for the Corsa, so I lost
Decent.
about 1,200 quid. Maybe we had it for 6 months.
Yeah.
I think we paid 27 grand for the
M3.
M3. We put some money down on it and I got some finance, but we paid that off near enough straight away.
Right.
So we had all that money in that car. I never really liked it.
Particular reason for that?
It's really heavy, it's just underpowered. And I literally was bending over backwards to try and afford a GTR. In the end, I went to St Helens, the Middle-earth garage.
So this was a CBA?
CBA, yeah.
Can't be arsed GTR.
Can't be arsed GTR, yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved that car. It was amazing. It was 470 horsepower, the original one. The power delivery, everything, going from an E92 M3 to that was like going from a 1.1 Escort to an RS Turbo.
So it wasn't massively more power, because what were they? They were similar to the B7, weren't they? The M3s?
420 PS, I think. Yeah.
So similar to the B7, so 50 horsepower on paper,
That's
another
all it was,
50
yeah.
horsepower, but there's obviously bucket loads more torque because it's
Loads
twin
more.
turbo.
It sounded amazing. Paid £54,000 for it. I had a look at 2. One had a white pipe, one didn't have. As soon as I heard the one with the white pipe, which was that one, my one, I was like, I need that car. The sound difference was amazing. So the 475 that it probably was kicking out more, to be honest.
Nearly 500.
Because it felt fast. Like I say, paid off the E92 M3, so I had and I traded that in. I think it was about 24 I got for it on a trade-in, and then I put 30 into that, and I was paying £2,000 a month on a HP.
Jeez, but obviously that was to pay it off as quick as you could.
Pay it off as quick as possible.
I know somebody else who had one of my old bosses, years ago. He had one of the first GTRs in the country. And I remember him saying it was ridiculously fast, but for how firm the ride was and how everything just rattled from brand new. Everything in it rattled. There was creaks, squeaks, rattles, everything.
And
that's what put him off it, because he'd been
Yeah.
used to Porsches. So he'd had 911s for years.
You'd never be able to go through a Porsche to one of them and not be annoyed. I didn't actually sell the car because I needed the money. That was the thing. I just sold the car because I wasn't using it, and I got 40,000 for it. So I'm going to go through these pretty quick now until we get to the end ones. 2016 KM GTS. So this was a 3.6 litre in black, turbo wheels. Paid £87,000 for the car. Then I convinced my wife to get rid of that. I don't know how I did that, but I managed it. That was the 991.1 GT3 Club Sport. So it had the buckets, roll cage, fire extinguisher, PDK. Didn't do it in a manual gearbox, so you only had a PDK option. Paid £145,000 second hand for it. Off Wilmslow Porsche. Really enjoyed that car. Went to Geneva. Porsche invite you to Geneva when you buy a car. Yeah. And when we were there, they just unveiled the 991.2 GT3, and the finance manager, Howard, who we shared a few beers in the Porsche hospitality.
Of course you did.
We were looking at the car, and he said, if I can get you one, do you want one? I said, well, I'm happy with my Gen 1. He said, well, do you want one? If I can get you one. I was like, go on then. That car was costing me $2,000 a month on finance.
Yeah.
Brand new one went down to $1,400. And I knew that there'd be money in it as well because of the resale value.
So that was a no-brainer.
No brainer. The only way you can, aesthetically, I can tell the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 is the rear wing and the nose. So that's every car that I've owned. The rest of the cars are on the YouTube channel, so if you're new to the channel, go and check them out. They're all there to see.
Loads of them. Right, but I reckon you guys are going to ask the same question as me. I want to know the answer to. Out of that list of quite a few tragic cars, a few decent ones, a few mega ones, if there was one car that you could have the keys to back, money no object, The keys, there you go, you can have that. Which one would it be?
I think I'm going to have to do 2 answers to this. I'm going to give you the best car that I've ever owned,
Right.
and the car that I have the most sentimental sort of like feeling for, the car I've probably enjoyed the most. RS Turbo and Focus RS Mark II. You might think, well, you had loads of problems with that car, why would you want that car back? It was a really good car, it was good to drive, good feeling, good feedback from the car. And the RS Turbo, the B-Reg, that was just, it was a terrible car, like reliability wise, used to break down.
Yeah.
But it was the first turbo car I had. I've got a lot of, I remember buying that car, I remember a lot of things about it. And it's like more things like when you remember stuff from years ago. The best car out of all that I've owned is the most expensive car, the 991.2 GT3. And the reason why it's better than the 991.1 is the engine. If I could have them back at the price that I paid for them, I'd have the RS Turbo back at £2,000. Because they're like, God knows how much now, they're a fortune. And you know what, I'd love to drive that car. If anyone's got a B-Reg or a C-Reg, RS Turbo, please get in touch because I would love to drive that car again.
Serious?
Yeah, I would love to drive that car again.
Right, so one other thing before we do go, merch. Thank you very much for getting involved with the merch. Loads and loads of ladies actually were buying merch for the fellas, so thank you very much for that. It's obviously paid for Lee's nice shiny new house, mate.
Well,
so
something's got to pay for it.
all the merch sales. Thanks for watching as always. Please subscribe, hit the bell thing. Nice one.
Cheers, see you in a bit.